that's one of the questions I ask myself, not just have concern about where my business is today, but where's my business going to be in 5 years? And the most important, if not the most important thing you can do is have KPIs, because that's the pulse of your business. That's the way that you can look, hey, what levers do I need to pull to be able to, quickly react to something that's going on? And so we track everything. I mean, I may over track things, but that's okay. After a while, we'll decide, okay, this isn't that useful. But my old boss once told me the KPIs that you want to focus on are the ones that, change people's behavior. So if you have something and, you see, hey, this is going down, this is going up, whatever the case may be, we need to make an adjustment.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Carrot Cast, where we help agents and investors dial in their marketing, their mindset, and more. On these Tuesday episodes, for today I'll be your host, I'm Brady Winder, and on Thursdays we'll have Trevor Chuck Talks with our CEO, Trevor Mock, where he can dive into his entrepreneurial journey as CEO of Carrot. I've got my friend Shane Garza with me here today. I'm going to introduce him to you in just a second. I'll pass the mic over to him. But first, I want to tell you about what we're going to be talking about and how we stumbled on Shane. So we're talking about KPIs today, and it's something that I don't feel like is talked about often enough. Most investors have one KPI. It's, am I making money? And in the early days, that might be totally fine. But if you're doing deals regularly, you're spending money on marketing, on ads, and you're leading a team, you got to get them dialed in. And we're going to talk about why. If you don't, chances are you're going to have some pain points, which you could probably avoid. But Shane is someone who we've seen has managed to build a well-organized team and have a decent amount of success as a real estate investor in a short amount of time. We're going to break it down. But I want to read a comment here real quick. This is actually how I stumbled upon Shane. He was watching Summit of 2020, I believe. And this guy comes to YouTube and he says, hey, we just joined 3 months ago to Carrot. I've closed 9 wholesale deals in the past month for over $45,000 in income. It's been amazing. 3 leads per day training is excellent. I'm not trying to sell y'all on Carrot. I just thought that was really cool, and I wanted to celebrate Shane. That's awesome. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
It's good to have you, man. I'm really excited to dive into this. I know you and I got a chance to chat on the phone about, before this podcast, what we want to talk about. There was so much we thought about, man, we're going to have to do this in like 2 or 3 episodes. There's going to be so much stuff in here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. We got to meet at Carrot Camp. Was that 2-3 weeks ago? We got to have you out here in Oregon. What's your story, man? Let people know who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Shane. We are located in southern Indiana. We do most of our business in Louisville. We're kind of venturing out to Indianapolis market and Florida as well. For the most part, if I were to say the main bread and butter of our business, it would probably be flipping. We do a lot of wholesaling and obviously buy and hold. So, and then I think for the most part, like the goal this year is to develop SOPs and document our processes so that we can move into the commercial space. So that's where we're headed. A little bit about how I started. I actually had a full-time job up until 2018. I started the company with my stepfather. He ended up putting up $25,000 and I put up $25,000. And then I borrowed the rest from a private lender who I did a 50-50 equity split with. And as I was working full-time, I was kind of flipping on the side, going there on Fridays and Saturdays and doing the work myself and just trying to, kind of feel my way through the process and figure out what all this stuff is. Because at the time, I didn't realize how many different trades are involved and really, what it all entailed. So it was just a lot, to take on. But
this is your first flip you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So when I jumped into that, it wasn't the prettiest flip. I painted the cabinets black. I'm colorblind, but it got the job done. I mean, we ended up selling. I think I bought it for like 65. We put probably 30 into it, and I think sold it for like 120. So,
not bad.
So if you're okay with it, Brady, I'll share a little bit about my background.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, so I actually went to college here in Louisville. Um, I was there around 2010, or from 2007 to 2010. I actually ended up dropping out my junior year because I had joined a fraternity, and instead of focusing on school, I was focusing more on drinking and partying and goofing off, and I ended up. Dropping out. I had a couple internships. I lost those and really just lost my way there for a while. So from about 2011 to 2016, I ended up kind of falling off the wagon. I became a regular drug user and sober today, thank God. But um, but yeah, I was looking back now, I just really have a lot of gratitude for, the journey that I've taken up until this point. Because, if I wouldn't have gone through what I went through, I don't think I'd be where I'm at. And I wouldn't be able to stay as grounded as I am today. At one point, I was homeless. I actually was sleeping in a tent. And yeah, I remember going to McDonald's bathrooms and actually, getting a large cup of water and using the sink to kind of like wash myself off, and then going over to, this guy's house. And really, like, my whole life revolved around this activity, this drug activity. Right. And so I ended up doing that. And, I really don't know why. I look back now and I still don't have a good answer for you. Both my parents were addicts. They actually both passed away from overdose, and I ended up living in a children's home for a while. But what I see is a lot of people that have this type of background, like that family. They either go one or two ways. They see that and they're like, "Man, I'm not going to go in that direction at all," Or you have the others that are like, don't really think about it, or I'm different. I think that was kind of my mentality at the time. And so again, not to get too deep into the woods, but I'm grateful that I've had that experience and I've been able to come through it. And then where I'm at today, I'm more blessed than I deserve, and grateful to be here. So
that's awesome. No, I think it's super important context. I appreciate you being vulnerable, sharing your story, and it's inspiring to hear, where you came from. That's awesome, man. What was the, one more question, and then we'll dive into that kind of the tactical side of it, like KPIs, because you've done some awesome work here as an investor. But what was the turning point for you? What was the aha moment? Because like you said, 2011 to 2016, you didn't say off the rails. What was the light bulb?
Yeah, so I actually ended up, I was incarcerated for about 4 years. And it's weird. It's crazy that I know this, but about 2 years, 2 months, and it was 22 days, like to the exact moment. I was actually just sitting there in my rack, right? You have these metal racks, and I had nothing at that point, right? And I just remember I was trying to read through the whole Bible. I was trying to read it start to finish, which isn't easy. It's harder than it sounds, but
yeah, it's hard.
I kind of just broke down and just realized, like, hey, what I'm reading is true. Like, this is what I believe. Like, I decided, hey, I'm gonna put all my eggs in one basket, and I just was bawling. I just started crying, and I was like just a little baby, just blubbering. And I'm like, but at that moment, it was like a paradigm shift to where, instead of me, like, being in this facility with all these other, men, like, just to say in my head saying, man, I don't want to be anything like these people. I don't want to be around these people. It really shifted to being like, this is an opportunity for me to pour into other people. This is an opportunity for me to mentor people, because I have, stuff that, other people don't have. I've had some good mentors in my life. I turned my back on them, obviously, at one point, but I saw it as an opportunity. And then there's no other point in your life where you'll have 24 hours a day to just really work on yourself, Yeah. And so it was just definitely a different way of looking at it.
And so that was halfway through being incarcerated. You said that was 2 years, 2 months. So about halfway through. So you had a good solid 2 years to be like, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity God's given me. I'm going to minister to the people around me. I'm going to get out and, I'm going to try something new. Okay. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So you got out, you flipped a house that you didn't lose your tail on it. So that's cool.
Right.
The first flip went well. That's awesome. And then fast forward to sorry, we're going to say something.
No. I was going to say you're right. Like, to be able to scale this business the way that we have, and that's one of the questions I ask myself. Not just have concern about where my business is today, but where's my business going to be in 5 years? And the most important, if not the most important thing you can do is have KPIs, because that's the pulse of your business. That's the way that you can look, hey, what levers do I need to pull to be able to, quickly react to something that's going on? And so we track everything. I mean, I may over track things, but that's okay. After a while we'll decide, okay, this isn't, that useful. But my old boss once told me the KPIs that you want to focus on are the ones that, change people's behavior. So if you have something and, you see, hey, this is going down, this is going up, whatever the case may be, we need to make an adjustment.
Interesting. The ones that change people's behavior. So you flip that house and kind of, I'm moving ahead quickly, but you have a team right now. Were you always concerned about KPIs? Were KPIs always important to you? Did it start out that way?
Not initially. I have a background in lean manufacturing and like Six Sigma, and it's all about continuous improvement. And in any manufacturing environment, it's definitely important to have those things. I didn't really see how much they applied to my business until we started actually doing a little more volume, because then it made sense and we had more moving parts. But if you can start, if you want to start tracking them from day one, just to, just get into the practice of it, it's probably a good idea.
Okay. So what, for people listening, for context, what, if you don't mind sharing, what revenue is the business at right now?
So year to date, we're at about 1.4. And we think we're going to end up getting close to 2.2 this year, or maybe a little over that. We've actually had some come in the pipeline just recently that are going to be really good deals. So I'm excited about that.
Holy cow. Is that gross or net?
That's gross. That's gross. Yeah.
So that's really good, man. That's really awesome. And so, what point you were talking about when you guys started to do more volume, how far into the investing journey was that, years or volume, when you were like, okay, I need to get organized?
Yeah, no, that's fine. So 2019 is when I actually quit my full-time job. I probably flipped like 3 or 4 houses before I actually quit. And then I just jumped in head first, and it was kind of a sink or swim mentality. And I was like, I'm either going to do this or I'm not. I'm going to, succeed or fail. I think 2020 was well, no, you know what? I'd say 2021 was probably really the kind of the step into the large volume, because that's when I actually hired W-2 employees, like literally January 1st. I had some part-time people working for me on just strictly a commission basis. But at the beginning, basically end of 2020, I called them in the office and was like, look, this position's no longer available. This is what I do have available if you'd like to, step into this role. And it's full-time, it's W-2. And I'd say that's when we started tracking everything, and being particular about it.
That makes sense. I mean, that's a lot of expense. You're bringing in full-time employees, you're doing more volume, a lot more expenses. You can't afford to not be paying attention. So now that we have some context for where you're at in your journey, you've got a team. How many people are on the team right now?
So I have 3 people in-house and then 6 virtual assistants.
Okay, so pretty sizable team. That's a lot to manage, just yourself.
Yeah, I actually started off with more people in-house. So my whole strategy was like, okay, I'm going to be different. I'm going to, bring people in-house, and we're going to, I'm going to get some really effective people that I can coach one-on-one. And the costs, like you said, just started eating me up. And I was like, man. And then I talked to just so many different people, and they're doing these virtual assistants. And, finally I bought into it and was like, okay, I need to, and I can get it. It's they're not as effective overseas, but they are awesome. I'll tell you what, they work their butts off. They, are just the most hospitable people ever. And, not to be, what's the right word, but they're like 20% of the cost of what you would
Right.
pay somebody over here. So
It makes sense. And usually, they're still getting paid like really well for what their currency is worth there.
right,
Just the way the dollar
absolutely.
translates.
Yeah.
What company are you using? How are you finding your virtual assistants?
So I just find them on my, well, I'll be completely open. I pay them $3.50 an hour. They are, I find them through onlinejobs.ph. Trust me, I've gone through a lot of them. And initially I just kept writing it off because, and really it was a failure on my part, because for anyone over there, you need to have very buttoned up instructions. So I would
Yeah.
say documentation plus a video, that's for the technical side of it, and maybe a document for the conceptual side of it. And that whenever they will follow that to a T. And I didn't have that in the beginning. And so I just, I ended up going through probably 4 or 5 of them until we, honed in on some really effective virtual assistants.
Okay, that's good to know. Onlinejobs.ph. Yeah, I've heard people have had good success with that one. We have a Rocket Station in the Carrot Marketplace, carrot.com/marketplace. Rocket Station, they're investing specific. People have good luck with them as well, but that's good to know.
Cool.
So let's talk about these KPIs. We have 8 KPIs here. Shane's kind of outlined. Let's start from the most important to you, and maybe spend a minute or two on each one. I'll pop in and ask questions and give some context. But what's the most important thing people should be paying attention to?
Yeah, that's a interesting question.
Or is it not the case?
It depends on what's going on at the time in the business, right? One may be more relevant than the other.
Let's say if you're like you're closing a couple deals a month, you've got 2 team members, and you're spending a couple grand on marketing, a few grand on marketing, and you're like, I don't know where my money's going. I don't know how much to budget. Where's my next deal coming from? That sort of thing. Where would you guide
okay,
someone?
so let me share this because it's not necessarily a KPI, but it to me it's just extremely valuable, because I wish I would have known this in the beginning. Because most of the time, the first step that a lot of people take, because it's cost effective, the cost per lead is cheaper, is cold calling. And people don't understand these auto dialers. Like I went through them all basically to hone in on the best one. And I'll go ahead and share, out of all of them, I think Ready Mode, which used to be Zen Call, is the best one, because the interface is harder to use, but you're able to really hone in and adjust parameters. And so with that said, I can't pull it up here, but just picture in your head like a pyramid, right? So picture, starting at the bottom, working the way to the top. Well, at the top is going to be your yes once offers. So those are going to be the people that actually, want to sell their house. So working your way down from there, you have the call log. So the call log is how many connections you're making, how many people you're actually talking to. So you've got to call a lot of people to get a lot of, yes once offers, right?
Yeah.
In order to get more calls, you have to adjust a few things, or you have to focus on the average wait time is one of them. So the average wait time is how much, time does it take between calls for your virtual assistants. And usually we like to stick around like 30 seconds. So if we notice on the dialer that they're spending more than 30 seconds between calls, then it's something that we need to adjust. So with that said, the things that you can adjust below that are your lists. So you can change out the list, maybe an absentee list to a vacant list to a pre-foreclosure to, whatever it may be. You can change out the phone numbers. So that's a step lower, or you can adjust the dialer speed. And I actually skipped one, which is the calls to connect. So how many calls do you need to be making to connect to one person? And typically we like to stay under 40 calls. So if if that auto dialer is dialing, and it rings 40 times, you want to make sure you're getting a hold of one person. Because if that
40
stuff goes
calls
up,
to connect with one person, not 40 calls to a yes.
Right. 40 calls to connect to one person.
Right.
Yeah. And so the whole idea is like, if you adjust these things up top, below, then it's going to affect your average wait time. It's going to affect your call log, how many calls you're actually, or how many people you're talking to, which is thereby going to affect your yes once offers, right? The more calls you make, the more yes once offers. And so the reason I brought that up is because there are so many people who don't understand the inner workings of these dialers. They just, stick a VA in there and have somebody manage it, and then they don't hone in on it. Well, again, this is to when we're talking about KPIs, this is why this stuff is so important. Like if you don't know the inner workings or the mechanisms of your business, then you can't be the most efficient or effective, right?
Yeah. Oh man, that is just gold. Like I've never, like in the few years I've been around Carrot, been talking with lots of investors. That's the most detailed I've ever heard anyone talk about cold calling, which is kind of sad because it really wasn't crazy detailed and it's not that difficult, but it's unfortunate.
Exactly.
I mean, dude,
Exactly.
most guys, they go in and their coach tells them, yeah, you need to start doing cold calling. And so what do? They take money, they throw it, and they say, okay, now VA, go make cold calls for me. No system, no process. Or even if they do, it's like, you're thinking of a flow chart. Succeed? Okay, keep throwing money. Didn't succeed? Okay, pick a new VA. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
No.
investors are so good at that. They're like, let's just throw money at the problem. Like, I don't want to hear, but here you go. And
Yeah.
it's funny because we had like a company that we paid initially for the VAs, and we had somebody managing it. And this is over like a year period. And we finally, it took us this, like you said, it's not that detailed, but it took us that long to really hunt and be like, oh my gosh, this guy's not being effective at all. Like we could be getting through so many more calls in a week. So whenever we're making, 2,000 connections a week, we should actually be making 6,000 or 8,000, a week. And that's that much more opportunity to get somebody who wants to sell, get in contact with somebody who wants to sell their house.
And at that point, it's much more scalable because you've got it dialed in. You know what an efficient, valuable cold caller is like. So you can, when you bring someone new in, it's like, hey, are you meeting these metrics? This is about the ballpark, what you should be able to do.
Right.
Okay, that's really valuable. I didn't expect that, but that's really good, man.
Yes.
I appreciate the pro
Threw a
tips there.
curveball at you.
No, that's awesome. I don't think we've ever covered that. So let's talk about KPIs. What are some of your favorite ones, man?
Yeah, so let's. So obviously, top of the list, I put cost per lead, cost per deal, cost per transaction. They're kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
But the reason I like that one so much is because that's what that KPI tells you specifically what you need to make to be able to be profitable on that deal. So if yours is $3,500, per transaction or per closing, then you need to be making $3,500 on that deal. I've done several wholesale deals where we've made $2,000, and let me tell you, those are the biggest. Most of the time, they're the biggest headaches. They're the ones that end up having the most, things. Now, granted, would I turn one down because our cost per deal is $3,500 and I'm only making $2,000? Probably not, but especially if you're getting started, like you have to be persistent, and you may not find a deal for a while. So when you get that one, and I don't care if it's $800, like you're gonna feel good about it.
That's awesome. What's your how many leads to a deal right now? What's your cost per lead, cost per deal?
I think right now ours is roughly around 3,500. I think it may be a little higher than that. It's 3,680 or something like that.
That sounds about right. And what's the marketing mix? What are you guys doing?
That's direct mail, cold calling, texting, and SEO, PPC. Yeah.
That's all of it. Man, you guys are doing everything. That's awesome.
Yeah. We're trying to, well, and that's the whole goal, right? Is we're trying to become very efficient in every single channel so that we can scale. That's
right.
I think it's important to figure that stuff out in the front end, and not have to deal with it later when we are throwing lots of money at it. Right.
Okay, I'll circle back to that because this is Carrot. This is an online marketing podcast. We're definitely going to dive in at the end, if time permits, about SEO, PPC, but we'll give the people what they came for. Stay focused, Brady. Okay, KPIs. What's another good one? What do people need to pay attention to?
So we have cost per deal, cost per lead. So I think that's another common metric. So you want to know, and initially I was tracking it in two different ways. I was tracking it in like cost per lead based off of the list total, and then I was tracking it based off of like connections. So if we had 12,000 connections this week, then that each one of those has a cost associated with it. But regardless, I think most like Podio or Investor Fuse, they track it based on the leads that are coming into the CRM, which is probably the best way to do it.
Okay. What's the next one on the list? Cost per lead, cost per deal.
Obviously, I saw that. I think someone at Carrot Camp it's said it a different way, but we just call it YWOs versus contracts. So it's yes once offers versus contracts. So how many people do we need to talk to get one deal? we track that per channel. So how many people do we need to say, yes, they want to sell your house, via text to get a deal. And then same thing for cold calling and the other channels.
Is that a gut feeling for you guys, or are you pretty you nerd out with spreadsheets on like, I know exactly how many leads
I
to do?
nerd out with spreadsheets. I
Okay.
definitely like Asana. Have you heard of Asana?
We use Asana internally.
Oh,
Like,
I love Asana, dude. I told my old business coach I was gonna get a tattoo of Asana. Like, I'm that much of a nerd.
see, I'm gonna get a tattoo of Airtable. Airtable is like changed.
Somebody else has told me, because Airtable you can make the webhooks, right? You can
do anything.
It's like a spreadsheet online, right?
You can do anything you would do with a Google Sheet plus what you would do with Asana, and you can formulate data in different views. I know this isn't like a nerdy productivity podcast, but y'all, if you do like spreadsheets and you're like, Shane, you want to get organized, like check out Airtable. It's powerful, man. It does some really good stuff.
I definitely will. Like, I'll circle back with you after I've messed with it, and I'll probably tell you how much I love it. And
it's good. I run this entire podcast on Airtable. We actually have Ricky and Robert Grand from Carrot Camp. They run some of their, I don't know if they're using it anymore. They used to use it kind of as a CRM for their investing business. Anyways, so leads per deal, that's kind of what we call it. How many leads to a deal?
Right. Leads per deal. That's right.
So what, before we go to the next one, what's this looking like by channel? Like, what are you finding is working best for marketing? As far as like quality leads?
Actually right now our leads per deal is lower for texting, but we have higher volume for calls. And so, we're getting more deals through cold calling, but the texting is actually lower at the moment. So
interesting. But do you have enough data to know SEO and PPC, what those are like?
Or you know what? SEO, I want to say it's like, I don't have it in front of me. And it's funny because I don't manage that one as closely because I have somebody kind of doing it for me. But I want to say it's somewhere around 20 maybe, or no, it might be lower than that. So like actual leads coming through, right? And then, which ones actually convert. We haven't had good luck with it though. We've gotten a lot of leads, but we just, they don't tend to convert. Not to say they won't. Like I know what podcast I'm on, so that's the way to go. So we're still getting there though.
Yeah, we'll dive into it. We'll hop on there with you and figure it out. And then what about PPC? Or is it still in the experiment phase with that?
Yeah, it's still, so I did it like real heavily for about a year, and then I pulled back because I wasn't getting the, deals that I wanted, and I just decided to take that money and spend it elsewhere. And so we actually just started doing PPC again this past month. So we've had it on hold for probably about 6 or 7 months.
Okay. So. Nice. Okay. So what's next on the list for KPIs?
Specifically related to flipping, there are just two basic metrics that I like to pay attention to is average money turnover and then average job completion. So average job completion, because we use private lenders and then hard money lenders as well. And, any extra day is, extra interest that you're paying on that deal, and more risk, right? Especially if the market's shifting at the moment, you don't want to have that much exposure. So we kind of grade. We have what we call like contractor scorecards. So we, basically grade our contractors, have them come in the house and say, okay, hey, this is the deals, these are the houses you've done. You initially bid it at a 12-week completion, and it ended up taking you, 16 or 17, whatever it may have been. And then as far as average money turnover, like we want to make sure, that's from purchase to sale, and so the stuff outside of the actual rehab, we want to make sure we're managing that effectively. So if we close on it, we want to make sure we're starting the work that week or the week after, right? We're not waiting a long time. We're not having houses sit for whatever reason for 2 or 3 weeks. And then, when it's on the market, right? We don't want it sitting on the market for 60 days or 55 days or whatever. So any of those things that we can control outside of that, that's why I pay attention to that KPI.
How long? What was the last one you said? Average? Was it average money turnover? It's basically how
Yeah,
long?
average money turnover and then average job completion. Our average money turnover right now is like 22 weeks, so it's not that great. Our average job completion is like maybe 12 weeks. But we have some outliers that have like, shifted that out because we've had some really big jobs that ended up just dragging out and had issue after issue. And so that can affect that, a little bit. But our project manager, like that's kind of, you know, their responsibility. Like, hey, this is what your job pertains to.
Do they? So for this example, the project manager, do they know these KPIs? Are they tracking them, or is this something where you're keeping track and then you're meeting with them saying, "Hey, this one's about taking this long"?
No. So every week, so we have basically like a Gantt chart, and they track it every week, and now they're tracking. We're kind of getting more granular to where we are tracking all of the subcontractor work. So like, how long is it taking the drywall guys? How long is it taking the electrician to get in here? How long is it taking the plumber? And so a lot of it, the majority of our work is on the front end, and like as long as we coordinate things effectively, like these guys a lot of times will get in and get it done. They're fast, but it's about managing it and making sure to set up the schedule that, hey, if I need the drywaller here, Wednesday to Friday, well, I need them over here on Monday to Wednesday, and just set it up, make sure we're scheduling out at least 3 or 4 weeks. So
Interesting. So you have a Gantt chart per project, right? Like per flip that you're working on?
yeah.
Okay. I never thought about doing that. I mean, like we run on Asana internally at Carrot. I use, Asana Airtable. And so it's really nice and powerful having that visual just at a glance. Okay, here's where we're at on all these projects. But that's got to make it easier for the team too, because then that's time that you don't have to spend communicating. Someone's not calling you, hey, when's the drywall guy showing up for 160 Stone Ridge? Look at Asana, look at the Gantt chart.
Exactly.
You just see the whole thing.
For sure. Like, hey, who's supposed to be here and what's here? Yep.
Okay, I like that. What's another KPI?
I might have skipped. Well, so ROI, I think is that too big, but it's the one that I'm looking at is per market. So like, what's my return? It's revenue divided by market cost. So if we're spending dollars in Indianapolis, what's our return on our investment there? Same thing for Florida, and then obviously Louisville as well.
Okay. Yeah.
And so did we hit on 8? So let me run through this.
I have no idea.
Cost per lead.
I just know they're good. I'm just listening, asking questions.
So we have cost per lead, cost per deal, lead. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, but leads and connections. So that's just super simple. Just track the number of people that you're getting in contact with each week. Doesn't matter what channel, just track that because you want that number to go up. An interesting one that we track is called lead velocity rate. And so basically that's how many leads you have in your pipeline. So to ensure that we're having a month over month increase. So our goal is 5% every month. So if we put in, 262 leads, in February into the system, we want to make sure we have a 5% growth rate, month over month. Because if you don't get more leads, right, you're not growing. And so it's just, I really like that metric. I don't know the exact formula, but I'm sure if you Google it, lead velocity rate, then you'll find it.
That's interesting. Yeah. I don't know if I hear anyone talk about lead velocity rate or, just sheer number of leads. So you said leads and connections. Are you tracking like, hey, I had a conversation, like I went to a RIA, I talked to 30 people this week. Like what does connections look like?
No, well, that's funny because we've never tracked that part of it, but that may or may not make sense. No, we just do it through all the channels. So we just see, hey, how many basically touches, right, have you made? So how many people have you touched? So if you sent 2,000 mail pieces this week, like that's 2,000 connections.
Gotcha.
And then cost per lead, cost per deal.
Leads and connections are separate. Okay. I was confused at first. I thought you were bundling.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then leads per deal, ROI, average money turnover, average job completion. I think I told you 8, but that was only 7. Well, I did throw in the lead velocity rate, so we'll call that 8. But, I think the important thing is to focus on leading indicators. So you have leading and lagging indicators, right? So your lagging indicators are things that have already happened, and you just look at a report and you're like, oh, okay, cool, this happened. Well, the things are to hone in on, which are harder to kind of track sometimes, but are those leading indicators. So, for example, like if you're trying to lose weight, well, a lagging indicator would be looking at the scale. The leading indicator would be counting calories. How many calories are you eating? So it's the same concept with anything in this business. Like focus on those, because at the end of the day, if you get those leading indicators, honed in on you, it's going to affect the results, right? It's going to affect the lagging indicators.
That's really good. That's really good. It's funny because a lot of this stuff, it's like we we're talking about at the beginning of the episode. It's not super complicated. It's not super detailed. They're all kind of surface level, but I think just having an overall awareness of them and keeping them front of mind is really powerful.
Yeah.
On that 5%, how'd you land on 5% for lead velocity? Was that just kind of a gut, like we need to be growing about this much?
Well, so we looked at the past 2 years of data, or like I think it was 2020, 2021.
Okay.
And we were kind of all over the place. Like we were, and the steady, and I think you're right. I think that was kind of just reading other kind of sales or books or businesses, and that's, and it's kind of proved true. Like we've had one that was like 15%, and then we had the month after that was like minus 10%. So it does fluctuate, but as long as the average, the moving average is at around 5%, I think that's a good number to focus on.
Okay. I like that. Well, shoot. I mean, that's more than 8. We probably had about 7 in there. Plus we had the cold calling ones at the beginning. We'll wrap it up in a minute here, but I wanted to ask you a couple more quick questions. How's your team involved with KPIs? Like, are you bringing these up in meetings? And specifically, I want to know, like, are the KPIs involved in keeping your team motivated at all? Or is this more a tool you use to stay on track?
Yeah, so it's definitely team oriented. Everyone fills out their, what they're responsible for, or whoever's overseeing it. Like the acquisition manager fills out the VA metrics, and then project management, obviously. But we have a weekly meeting, and where everyone kind of presents their side of it. We try to keep it 45 minutes to an hour, but just staying on top of that every week, and in the future. So actually, I just did our reviews for the employees, and one of the things I tell them is any future pay increases or any promotions in the business are going to be based on the evaluation and looking where they're at in their career framework, and then B, the KPIs. KPIs are that important, because if we don't effectively manage our KPIs and consistently improve those, then we fail. Our business fails.
There's a lot of accountability there, which also, I mean, just as the employee, creates a lot of I don't know how you would say it, just good expectation. You're not having to wonder as much, like, where am I at? Am I going to get this raise? It's more predictability and confidence.
Yep. Yeah, actually, my brother taught me that. He owns restaurants. He's an entrepreneur as well, and that was one of the things. Like, people should know where they're at, at the end of the year, without you having to say anything, right?
Interesting. I like that. Shoot, that's I think that's all I got. Is there anything? Let's see. We covered all those KPIs. Is there anything else you want people to know, regarding KPIs or running your business? Anything that was like really helpful to you early on in your journey?
Don't buy into well, they say, psychology is 80%, of being a millionaire. And I think, the way people hinder themselves the most is because of their own mindset. I think if nobody knows what they're doing whenever they start something. Like, there's no book written that says specifically step by step, here's what you want to do to run a business. Here's the problems you're going to run into. It just doesn't happen. It's, you just have to overcome that fear. And the question I ask myself over and consistently, does this belief serve me or does it limit me? And so if you think about, things that limit you, it doesn't matter if it's your physical health and you're working out, or, in business in general, like, as long as you kind of, are able to be aware of those thoughts that you have, then it's going to take you that much further. So.
I love that. Thanks for sharing, man. And that's, I really appreciate your vulnerability, sharing your story. I think it's amazing. I just want to say, like, congratulations, how far you've come in your business. And it seems like you're fulfilling your calling, if you will. Sounds like you're doing a good job leading the team, keeping people motivated. That's awesome, man. And thanks for sharing with our audience.
Very blessed, man. Yeah. Just, it's been fun, dude. I enjoy life today, and just able to stay grounded through this. And so if I can do it, hey, I'm just a, blue collar guy from Houston, Texas. And if I can do it, anybody can. So that's for sure.
That's awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to the podcast, go ahead, leave us a review. Follow us on Apple Podcasts. If you found this valuable, share it with a friend, share it with somebody in your market. I don't care if they're a competitor or not, share it with somebody. And my challenge would be even if you listen to this and you're like, I'm not quite there, or this is a little bit overwhelming, maybe I'm not as nerdy as Shane. I don't want to geek out on spreadsheets like Brady and Airtable, whatever. Take at least one or two of these KPIs and put them on a whiteboard and put them in your office and start tracking them, especially, just number of leads, number of contacts. Like, pay attention to how many people you're talking to, how many touch points you have, and start tracking something. Because if you don't, you're going to be in this boat 6 months from now and you're going to be having problems. So start tracking. Again, thanks everyone for listening. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.